Hi everyone, we are Diploma 6 and we would like to share with you the results of our short workshop. As part of the Climate Week, we collaborated with Placat Platform, which takes place every year at the AA and deploys the provocation format in order to turn productive oppositions into triggering devices. This year, we decided to focus on the theme of infrastructural monsters and the ways in which they can morph, shrink, disappear, and reappear in real and fictional ways to respond to the challenge of the climate crisis. Because big infrastructural projects tend to come at a great environmental cost. They reshape the landscape not simply by adding, but by subtracting, replacing complexity with blackness, nuanced ecologies with rigid structures. Our contributions are in the form of indirect responses that use the tools of architectural imagination. We use a methodology that has been developed over many years in order to tackle contemporary problems. This year, the explorations revolved around the latent environmental potentials of these infrastructural monsters while referring to various precedents that position the significance of being exact and vague. Could we go beyond functionalist obsession with data and quantities and avoid the recourse to the limited catalogue of absolute or iconic forms? Could we relate to urban transit and landscape beyond popular greenwash strategies with park canopies, plantings, bridges, and concourse gardens? Related questions were at the back of our minds as we dissect, critique, and begin to actively distort and manipulate several case study projects through the methods learned from our disciplinary chronograms. We looked into time-based frameworks for transformation, flow of materials, sources of energy, and anticipation of future occupancies, while remaining in the realm of ideas and speculations. We propose 4 sequential thematic axes as starting points for this exploration. These themes are designed to probe the varying positions within the future of infrastructural architecture.
The first group of projects are dealing with the shrinking of these forms. Big becomes small. This is where some of us questions the large scale and the environmental footprint of these projects. With the focus of completion of tracks, stops with only signposts and maybe a bench seems to become a potential reality. This provocation brings one from the extremely small to the extremely large. On the other hand, infrastructure could be seen as a disruptor of the presence of rail systems, including stations, junctions, and warehouses. It can disrupt urban cohesions, fragmenting city movements and hindering local continuity. In this way, infrastructure can be reimagined to create a disruptive continuity in urban movement design. To instrumentalize this fragmented force, the evolution of movement design in architectural forms must be examined, one that adapted to various scales and alternate morphologies. Infrastructure could be seen as an incubator of megastructures. Megastructures with their adaptability and modularity offers a compelling approach to addressing climate challenges in urban planning. At this stage, the small disintegrates into programmatic events and media. This shifts in programs sees the train station as transit points where things can prolong as a labyrinth. This renders transit obsolete by its accretion. It paradoxically makes a destination and transit no more. Instead of taking a train to go somewhere, elevator takes you to where you need to be without even leaving the station. Next, station morphs into a machine, a theater, a spatial and narrative entity that inscribes and interprets the city's stories, drawing between its functional mechanisms and its symbolic dimensions. Some questions: what is the future of travel? Is it possible if one day humanity travels through time as easily borders crossing? What does it look like to travel around the world in seconds? Could transit become a way of seeing that one pan, zoom, tilt, pixelate, rupture, track, split, cut, reverse, and whirl? Deleuze affirms a vision of the world as a process or archipelago. This archipelagic worldview dismantles the idea of continents as fixed and isolated entities. In this way, infrastructure becomes more than boundaries. It is a medium for visual operation of connections. Through cinematic lens, travel acts as a time machine, one where places and movements are never fixed, but constantly evolving, fast-forwarded, quickens, frozen, and loops. This very idea allows the Anthropocene to become a dispersion of differentiated yet connected fragments. It is a high-speed adventure that being at place is of many places, and being of a time is also of many times, departing one into the past continuous future territory to multiple cities and ecosystems all at once.
And later, the fluidity of program then all dissolve into the black hole. The black hole situated an infra building, a hybrid that merged modern and postmodern principle to embody both order and chaos within urban infrastructure. It balanced structure continuity with layered fragmentation, creating an adaptive, multidimensional environment. The infra building interweaves stable pathway with exploratory, complex space, combining elevated form with interwoven layer that preserve natural ground. As a connective structure, it navigates between stability and disruption, merging discontinuities, layering with responsive climate climate-conscious urbanism to create a cityscape that evolves dynamically within its context. Some argue that infrastructure cannot be designed; it is formed. With the acceleration of transmission method, real space is losing its significance. The absence of in-between in movement, the city is compressed and simplified into fragmented, transient image, with the two ends of infrastructure becoming the only remaining node of connection. Some disagree and suggest that the liquidity of the architectural discipline has always been associated with the idea of morphology. Each vortex is an interpretation of the architectural movement, interpreting liquidity, which leads to the expression of morphology as a basis of liquidity. The last group convert the black hole into narratives that blend fact and fiction. By interpreting the infrastructural space as a plateau, which is neither fully structured or entirely systematic, instead it acts as a bracket sustaining a temporary movement of deceleration and redirection, both structured and systematic, thus both controlled and emergent. The blackness is not a rigid framework, but an ever-expanding bracket that contains and sustains the condition for the more radical dissolution, condensation, and reconfiguration of those more familiar architectural element, type, model, etc. The blackness might existing for new trade and quality and provide fertile fluid for future projects. So infrastructure is not in between the structure, but in between the existing old net and the not yet born. Then we situate this transfer with the life cycle of the city itself, the extended timeline of cyclical destruction and reconstruction. We have two binary images of the same city, one undergoing a continuous process of optimization and the other regenerate continuously, reverting to a ruined state. This starts to challenge contemporary. It's an animation. This starts to challenge the contemporary issue of infrastructural legacy, such as disuse and disconnected infrastructure system, since a hyper-ordered city becomes infrastructure, and a hyper-layered one functions through metabolic recycling of its component. Finally, we confront Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, Vattel, delirious looping of time, Benjamin, collapse of past and present in a flash within our field as well. Idea returning, re-emerging, reshaped by force beyond our control. We try to understand the recycling of idea and precedent, but we critique the chaotic, unconscious, random way of doing it. It is a cycle, not us in control. We are static observers watching the same architectural story unfold. If we cannot break the loop, a potential way forward is becoming conscious surgeon of the eternal return, guiding the repetition with deliberate precision, Becoming aware operator of the silicon machine is an important step to becoming better equipped to deal with the climate crisis. And thank you.
There's so much to respond to there. So you'll forgive me if it's a little bit rambling at first. So I'm very sympathetic to the idea of kind of what you might call liminal time in traveling. And as a young man, as a sailor, I remember there are points in a long voyage sailing ships where every day is the same. And in the trade winds, and the sea is always the same. The wind is always from the same direction. Your sails never change. And the separation from the land and from your destination becomes this kind of simultaneous feeling of being infinitely extended in time, but also that the time itself is suspended from physical realities at either end, which is why I describe it as liminal. And there's, in the film Wings of Desire, Wim Wenders, there's the moment when the angel has fallen to earth, or chosen to fall to earth, and there's a train journey through Berlin at a raised level. And there's these kind of fragments of seeing into windows and urban spaces, people's lives. They have no narrative continuity except the person experiencing it. So there's no objective reality. It's subjective and highly personal to in this case, the angel. And somehow as a group, I like very much the black hole analogy, that you're suspended on an event horizon and that you're able from that to conjure kind of personal visions of cities that are neither real nor unreal. And that's how I understood what you're doing. It's very provocative, and I would love to see how this kind of works out in your individual work.
Wow, I really love this as a manifesto. I think that your choice of words, I think particularly, I mean, your drawings were wonderful, and I really appreciate the deconstruction of the urban space becoming notational, and the kind of use of your graphic style and the kind of the short fragments that you come up with. I'm just, the newness is eternal return. You've got these wonderful statements. I would love to see this inhabit an actual site, and the one that was, again, just I guess because it's the news, but I could see this really applying to Valencia before and after the engulfing of half of the region in mud. And so, I mean, it becomes incredibly profound when you situate it in a place, because I can feel the poetry and I can kind of get to the architectural sensibility. But I would love to see this as a critique of a specific site following an event, as a way of taking us through the need for infrastructural change. Because if we think about Valencia and all kinds of other cities where drainage, and runoff from the land has never been factored into where you build a house, that to me feels like a really valid example of how you could really pull apart some of this, these ideas that you have, and they feel important to me. And I would suggest that you don't kind of just go running off with more of them. I would choose some and really work into a place and a site and a situation and start to unpick what it actually means. You need to really reflect on some of your intuitive understanding of what you're facing as young architects looking at climate change and cities that have been evolving in a particular way and falling down in a particular way and getting back up in a particular way because of systems that just haven't changed for millennia. So yeah, it feels important to me, and I'd love to see this evolve.
Valencia is a good example, but maybe one of the things you could consider is the collapse of 50 years' time onto today. And this, in a way, is already implied in your methodology. And I love the idea of that these are a kind of notation, although I would be very hesitant to try to dance to that choreography. I don't think my whole body could do that. But potentially, in the ways that you're thinking about and generating projects, is to use the ideas you have to situate yourself. So that collapsing 50 years' time, and if you need the actual data at any particular place in the world, I can provide it for you, what's going to happen, what's likely to happen. And collapsing that onto the present would be both resonant with the work you've already done, but also very generative.
Can I recommend a text? Yeah. So I love what you've written. Don't want this to disturb your process at all. But there's a wonderful text by Umair Haq, who is an economist. I don't know if anybody gets obsessed by his blogs like I do. But he's got a lovely piece called The Age of Collapse. And he kind of notes the kind of collapse that we're seeing right now. So this might just be a starting point for you. Not pushing your ideas away. But he says that the unravelling that we see, whether it's from ecosystems to cities to politics to economies, it's from the bottom up. And I think that that's really important because essentially what he says is that we've kind of unstitched the world from the bottom up. So we lost the microbes, we've lost the kind of the stuff that glues the world together. And nobody notices until the middle falls in. And so the reason we kind of experience chaos is because we haven't been paying attention. And so, some of the things that you've been pointing out with the black hole, and it's just another lens that you might want to kind of think about when you're responding.
I think they'd enjoy looking at the very large through the lens of the very small. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.